Hey everybody, it's me just making another video today. This is a video I said I was going to bring you yesterday, which is going to be my Wrestling Forgotten Gems number 13. Really, I just thought I'd make a video today. Sort of in a good mood today, just got paid, got my bills paid, and sort of just happy. Probably might do something later, but haven't really decided. So yeah, I just thought I'd bring you a new video today. This is probably going to be a part 2 video talking about this is another series. This is another edition of my series Wrestling Forgotten Gems, where I talk about some of the most forgotten gems in wrestling. Today's subject of Wrestling Forgotten Gems, I'm going to be talking about the WWE, the WWF slash WWE tag team titles. These are like the best. These are like one of the best belts the WWE ever had, and of course the WWE had some early success with these belts with some of the best WWE tag team champions, and then the early tag team champions, and then of course they had some matches as well as feuds over this belt, and that's pretty much what I'm gonna be talking about in this installment of Wrestling Forgotten Gems. So it probably might be two videos just to explain everything in this video, or it might just be just one altogether. But let's get started. What can you say about the WWF slash WWE tag team titles? They first were introduced into the WWE somewhere in the 1970s. I didn't manage to put some of the early champions on here because most of the people who have subscribed to me, they won't know who they are or who I'm going to be talking about. So really, I put these guys, the early tag team champions that held this belt. You had Mr. Fuji and Professor Tanaka. You had the Blackjacks, the original Blackjacks, not the dub version, not the two other versions of the Blackjacks, where you had the Blackjacks in the 80s, and then of course you had the bad version in the 1990s, or the 1997 bad version of the Blackjacks, where you had Bradshaw and Barry Windham as the Blackjacks, not that version, the original version, Larza and Jack Mulligan. You had Chief J Strongbow and Billy White Wolf. You had the Wild Samoans, one of the best tag team champions of all time, and the best tag teams of all time. They were actually inducted into the Hall of Fame, which just shows you how important they were to the WWE tag team titles. You had Bob Backlund and Pedro Morales. Like Bob Backlund before he became a WWE champion. You had the Moondogs. Moondogs. You had Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson, and you just had a list of early tag team champions who held this belt and sort of kind of brought prestige to this belt and credibility to this belt. And they also had some awesome feuds for this belt. And that's what was the one thing that kind of separated this belt. Well, it was a normal tag team belt, but you had guys who sort of brought some prestige and credibility to these belts, as most people were just looking at these belts as two guys who just have two belts all together. But these teams just brought help people think outside of the box of that, as hey, these are like one of the best tag team champions of all time, and these guys are hard workers, and these guys are actually convincing me why they're the actually tag team champions. And that's what these guys did, and that's my early tag team champions. Also, you had some of the most popular tag teams win these titles. You had teams like the Dream Team, who won the belt somewhere in the 1980s, and they were one of the most hated tag teams in wrestling history, and most people wanted them to lose the belts. You also had the British Bulldogs, a team that was chasing this team for the belt. They were probably one of the best tag team champions of all time. The crowd got into them. They got into their matches. You also had them have feuds with the Hart Foundation, who I'm going to be talking about in the best tag team title feuds after I talk about this. You had the Hart Foundation, probably one of the greatest tag teams of all time, and they held these tag team titles on numerous occasions. They brought prestige to this belt, as well as the British Bulldogs, and they were also feuding with this belt as well, and brought most people. They helped. They brought the crowds and everything to the matches just based on their matches and feuds over this belt. You had Demolition, probably one of the most dominant tag team champions of all time, as they just ran through everybody in the WWE before I guess they lost the belts to I don't remember who the team they lost the belts to, but they lost the belts to that team. Well, yeah, it was Akeem. I mean, not Akeem. It was Andre the Giant and Aku. And then, of course, they sort of built up after that, after they beat that team and got the belts back. And then, of course, Hart Foundation would beat them. But they were one of the most dominant tag teams of all time and one of the most popular and over tag team champions of all time. Yeah, the Brainbusters, who consisted of Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard, probably one of the most hated tag teams in the WWE, but they were a tag team that most people would buy as tag team champions, as they were hard workers. They brought some technical and wrestling ability to the tag team division and to those tag team belts, and that's one of the reasons why most people still talk about them to this day as being one of the best tag teams of all time and the best tag team champions of all time. You had LOD, a team who was over with the crowd and had some memorable tag team title matches, whether it was with the Nasty Boys, Money Incorporated, or any other teams around that time. Even the Hart Foundation. This was a very good tag team that was popular and held the belt numerous occasions in the WWE. You had the Nasty Boys, another team that was hated but somehow got over with the crowd. And I believe they only won one WWE tag team titles, but it kind of brought some credibility to the belt as they were having some good matches with the belt. You also had Money Inc., probably one of the most underrated tag teams of all time, and probably one of the most underrated tag team champions of all time. You had the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and you had IRS, two good workers who put on good matches, who loved putting people over, just loved getting heel. They got heel heat from the crowd because they were one of the most hated heels in the WWE, and then add that to the fact that they were the tag team champions, and you got a recipe for success. And that's one of the reasons why I feel they were one of the most popular tag team champions of all time. You had the Steiner brothers, another team that was popular with the crowd and got over on their ability to have good matches and their hard work in their matches. There were three-time WWE, 3 or 4 time WWE Tag Team Champions, or maybe 2 time, and probably one of the greatest WWE Tag Team Champions of all time. They're also considered the greatest WCW Tag Team Champions of all time, but that's another video. This is me talking about the WWF/WWE Tag Team Champions. Tag team titles. Yeah, you had 1-2-3 Kid and Marty Jannetty, a thrown together team, but somehow got over with the crowd and had some good matches. Even though they had a 2-week title run, they were still a very good tag team and good tag team champions. And then you had the Quebecers, another popular underrated tag team that really most people don't talk about to this day, but still I felt this team was very good. They knew how to generate heel heat, and they just had some good matches with the Steiners and other tag teams around that time. They even somehow managed to get a decent match out of Men on a Mission, who I consider to be one of the worst tag teams of all time. And you pretty much know that because I already said that in my last video of my top 10 worst tag teams of all time, and they were on that list. But they somehow managed to get that team a decent match out of that team, and that's one of the reasons why I consider them to be one of the most popular tag team champions of all time. And then moving over to the tag team title feuds that this belt had. You had some of the best tag team title feuds, the best WWF/WWE tag team title feuds over those belts. One feud that comes to my mind was the British Bulldogs and Hart Foundation. This was probably one of the best feuds in the WWE the WWF at the time. These two were trading the belts back and forth, and there was actually a story to this feud, as the Hart Foundation sort of won their first title against them on sort of a screw job, with Danny Davis counting real fast on the British Bulldogs, and thus the British Bulldogs sort of wanted to get revenge on the Hart Foundation and Danny Davis. So they were feuding throughout the most part of the 80s. And it was just an awesome feud that led to really good matches between the two. And it showed just how much chemistry these two teams had when they got in the ring. And they were just showing American wrestling, how most wrestling is done, as they were Canadian, and European as well. So they were showing the U.S. wrestlers how wrestling is done, and those matches were just good. Stay tuned for part